Welcome back to the journey through real-life mysteries and chilling true stories. And if this is your first time here, be prepared, because the stories you're about to hear won't just send shivers down your spine. They'll make you wonder what might be lurking just beyond what we can see. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share this channel with fellow seekers of the strange and unexplained. Are you ready? The journey begins now. Beneath the surface of a quiet American town, something ancient began to burn, and it never stopped. In 1962, a small fire was lit in a landfill. But unknown to all, it reached a hidden coal seam beneath Centralia, Pennsylvania. The flames crept into the earth, spreading silently for miles. No one could stop it. No one fully understood it. Decades passed. Streets cracked. Smoke rose from the ground. The air turned poisonous. Houses vanished. People fled. But some stayed, and they whispered of voices underground, of things moving in the dark, and of an inferno that seemed alive. What if the fire was never just a fire? What if something awoke? And now, Centralia burns not as a tragedy, but as a warning. The ghost town of Centralia. The gateway to hell ignited by an underground coal fire burning for over 60 years. Centralia is a real town located in Columbia County, Pennsylvania, USA. Once a bustling coal mining community in the 19th century, it became a desolate ghost town due to an underground coal mine fire that started in 1962, a fire that has never been extinguished. For over 60 years, the fire has continued to smolder underground, spreading through coal seams, fracturing the Earth's surface, releasing toxic gases, and rendering the land uninhabitable. The government was forced to evacuate the entire population. Today, Centralia is nearly uninhabited, with only a handful of lingering souls remaining, like lost phantoms in the mist. Remarkably, Centralia was the direct inspiration for the iconic horror game and movie franchise Silent Hill, with its thick fog, cracked roads, eerie noises, and the infamous gateway to hell, all rooted in this real-life town. On May 27, 1962, a local firefighting crew was assigned to burn trash at the town landfill, a pit located near an abandoned coal mine. Everything seemed routine. The fire was set. The garbage burned. Mission accomplished. But in the days that followed, people noticed white smoke seeping from cracks in the ground nearby. At first, they assumed it was residual smoke from the trash. But the smell wasn't of wood. It was chemical, acrid, and strange. A week later, someone placed a thermometer deep into the earth. It registered over 80 degrees Celsius. Carbon monoxide levels measured in the area were fatally high. Unknown to anyone, the garbage fire had reached a still active coal vein underground. The fire began to spread. No one realized the danger, and then it was too late. By 1969, Centralia still had nearly 1,400 residents, a church, a gas station, a school. But strange signs became more frequent. Cracks appeared on main streets. White fog billowed from storm drains. Abandoned mine shafts began collapsing. Some residents smelled a metallic burning odor inside their homes. In 1972, trees in the nearby forest started to wither, not from seasonal change, but due to extreme surface heat. In some spots, thermometers placed near the ground measured up to 160 degrees C. That the town divided into two factions, one demanding government intervention, fearing for safety. The other, mostly older residents, refused to leave, suspecting a land grab conspiracy. On February 14, 1981, a pivotal event occurred. Todd Domboski, a 12-year-old boy, was playing in his grandmother's backyard when the ground suddenly gave way beneath him. He fell into a hole over 1 meter wide and 45 meters deep. Toxic white. Smoke billowed upward. Todd barely clung to a root near the surface. His uncle arrived just in time to pull him out. A few seconds later, and he might have died from carbon monoxide poisoning or been incinerated alive. Todd later described hearing crackling and wind in the hole, but it didn't sound like wind. It sounded like someone calling from below. The incident shocked the nation. Centralia, once unknown, became a national focal point. Survey teams arrived and found something chilling. The underground fire had spread across an area of 15 square kilometers and was burning over 90 meters deep. In 1984, the U.S. Congress approved over $42 million to buy out and evacuate Centralia residents. Over 1,000 people left. Churches, schools, markets, the movie theater, all dismantled, but not everyone agreed to leave. Some elders insisted, "I was born here. I'll die here." Authorities began cutting power, water, and stripping roofs off homes, making them uninhabitable. At night, roofless houses stood like skeletal remains amid drifting smoke. Some residents claimed to hear clanking beneath their floors. One elderly woman swore she heard church bells ring, despite the church having been demolished in 1986. By 1990, only about 60 people remained. They lived without power, without phones, without neighbors. Only the sound of wind whispering through fissures. One man, John Lokitis Jr., became the town's unofficial caretaker, living alone, cutting grass, hanging American flags along abandoned roads. In 2002, the state revoked Centralia's postal code. From that moment, the town no longer existed in official records. Yet on some nights, faint lights could be seen flickering from a supposedly abandoned home, and whispers drifted across the darkness, as if someone was reciting prayers. Route 61, once the town's main highway, is now split, cracked, and spewing smoke. It is covered in graffiti with chilling messages. "Welcome to hell. The gate is open. They never left." A group of teenagers once visited at night to explore. During thick fog, one of them vanished for several minutes, only to return in a trance, muttering, "It's opening." Some believe the fire beneath Centralia isn't just coal burning, but something else awakened. Conspiracy theorists claim that sight is a spiritual fault line, a place where the veil between life and death has worn thin. As of 2025, the Centralia fire has burned for over 63 years. Experts predict it could continue for another 250 to 500 years. Only 5 legal residents remain, granted the right to live out their lives there. Once they pass, all access will be sealed. The town is no longer a place for the living. It is a burning memory where entire generations were wiped away, leaving only ash, cracks, and whispers. Some call it a pyre graveyard, half cemetery, half hell. Was the Centralia fire merely an industrial disaster or an accidental invocation? Is something buried deep beneath the American soil, something that should not have been disturbed, and now burns everything above it? A girl born blind had never seen the light, but the night her best friend was murdered, she saw the killer in her dream and described him with chilling precision. Police thought she was lying until the truth unraveled into something even more terrifying. The blind girl who saw a killer, Tennessee, USA. Based on a true case recorded in 2012 in Hamilton County, Tennessee. In April 2012, the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department in Tennessee recorded a testimony that was strange and unexplainable by science. A girl born blind, who had never seen light in her life, was able to give a detailed description of the person, suspected of murdering her best friend. Even more baffling, the information she provided matched real facts, details that only the killer or the victim could have known. Initially suspected of involvement in the crime, her story soon took investigators down a completely different path. One that led into the realm of the supernatural, the unseen, and the unspoken. A path even the most skeptical detectives hesitated to tread. Jenna Ruth, born in 1994, was the only daughter of a middle-class family living in the northern suburbs of Chattanooga. From birth, she was diagnosed with congenital optic nerve atrophy. Doctors confirmed that she would never be able to perceive light, no colors, no shapes, no visual stimuli whatsoever. Despite this severe disability, Jenna grew up in a loving and supportive environment. She mastered Braille at age 5, learned music, played piano by ear, and could even identify strangers by the sound of their breathing or their scent. Her closest friend was Erica Malone, a straight-A law student at the University of Tennessee. They had met in 5th grade and bonded like sisters. Erica often read books to Jenna, describing the world with vibrant and poetic language. They took walks together in the park, listened to classical music, and shared dreams, though vastly different ones. Erica dreamed of becoming a lawyer. Jenna just wanted to live a normal life. On the night of April 7th, 2012, Erica texted Jenna, "Heading to your place at 7. Got some exciting news." But she never arrived. Around 7:18 p.m., neighbors reported hearing a faint scream from Jenna's house. Her parents rushed into the living room to find her collapsed on the floor, trembling and mumbling like she was sleep-talking. He's coming. He doesn't see me. Police arrived, but found no signs of forced entry. It seemed like nothing, more than a fainting spell, until Erica's body was discovered 3 days later near a forest lake, over 10 kilometers away. Erica had died from asphyxiation. Her neck bore deep ligature marks consistent with a red rope. There were no signs of sexual assault. Inside her bag was a small notebook with a schedule for the day, including a note. 7 p.m. Meet Lucas at the coffee shop near the gas station. Lucas Henner, Erica's boyfriend of nearly a year, became the prime suspect. On April 12th, Jenna was summoned to the police station. Though shaken, she calmly declared, "I saw him. Clearly." A detective blurted out, "But you're blind." Jenna nodded. "I don't see like you, but I saw him in a dream." She described the man, about 6 feet tall, wavy brown hair, high forehead, a birthmark resembling ink splotches behind his right ear. A horizontal scar ran across his left hand, as if cut by a knife. He wore a faded jean jacket and Timberland boots. In the dream, he stood near a rotting tree trunk, grinning as Erica cried for help. Police didn't know how to document this statement, but several details eerily matched Lucas's profile, including the childhood scar on his left hand. Since Erica's death, Jenna began dreaming the same nightmare nightly. She stood in a cold forest, listening to footsteps crunching leaves and a voice calling faintly, "Help me." Each night, the scene became clearer. She felt ropes tightening around her wrists, smelled damp earth, and heard wind hissing through trees. Most disturbingly, she felt someone standing behind her, laughing softly. Not joyful laughter, a victorious, cruel laugh. Jenna wrote down her dreams in Braille. By the 5th night, she dreamed of Erica being shoved into a lake. Accompanied by the rapid clicking of a camera, detectives revisited the crime scene. Near a decaying tree stump, buried under soil and debris, they found an 8 gigabytes memory card. It contained 12 blurry photos, long-distance shots of Erica. The last image showed the back of a man in a faded jean jacket. On April 20th, Jenna dreamed of being chased through the woods, but not by Lucas. It was someone else. Someone who smelled like burnt tobacco mixed with engine grease. She said his hands were rough. He was heavier, and he didn't know I was blind. In her dream, she saw a small cabin with a green door and a swan-shaped wind chime. Jenna had never seen anything in her life, yet she described the cabin in astonishing detail. Police searched the forest area again and found it. Abandoned cabin that matched her description. In its basement, they discovered dried mud and a length of red rope. DNA from the rope did not match Lucas. It matched Kyle Norwood, a man with a prior sexual assault accusation who was never convicted due to lack of evidence. Kyle had attended high school with both Lucas and Erica. He had once been banned from campus for stalking female students. Further investigation revealed that Erica had told a friend about a man harassing her online, an anonymous account that had recently sent threatening messages, especially after she posted photos with Lucas. Digital tracing confirmed the account belonged to Kyle. Jenna began suffering severe headaches lasting hours. She experienced waking hallucinations, hearing Erica whispering or sensing someone sitting beside her. Neurologists scanned her brain and found abnormal activity in her occipital lobe, the visual processing center typically dormant in blind individuals. The region lit up most when Jenna recounted her dreams that a local parapsychologist proposed that Jenna was not just blind, she was a memory receiver. People like her, he suggested, can unconsciously connect to strong emotional imprints left by the dead, especially those with deep emotional bonds. On the night of April 26th, Jenna had her last dream of Erica. They sat together in the woods. No ropes, no danger. Erica smiled and whispered, "I'm okay now. Thank you." The next morning, Jenna woke up and sensed faint light for the first time. She couldn't see clearly, but she knew what light felt like. Doctors confirmed her retinas remained damaged, but her brain had begun to interpret light through unknown mechanisms. Lucas was exonerated. Kyle was arrested with overwhelming evidence and confessed. How can a blind girl see what no one else did and feel what no one told her? Could memories, emotions, and trauma transmit themselves across consciousness beyond the known senses? And if so, what's the cost of such a connection? Deep beneath a major hospital in China lies a room no one dares to mention, Room 12, once used to store unclaimed bodies. Every night at exactly 3:33 a.m., security footage goes static. Faint scratching is heard from within the freezer, and a corpse is found lying in the center of the room, even though the doors were triple locked. After just 3 weeks, the room was sealed forever. But the real terror lies in this chilling question. What was trying to get out? Would you dare step into the coldest place where death might not be the end? Morgue Room 12. A true chilling case from the People's Hospital No. 2, Guangxi Province, China, 1999. This story is based on a leaked internal report from the People's Hospital No. 2, Guangxi Province, China, in 1999. Over a period of 3 weeks, a series of inexplicable events occurred in Morgue Room 12 located deep in the hospital's basement, culminating in the room being permanently sealed. Security footage, technical logs, and testimonies from medical staff and night shift guards have contributed to a body of evidence widely circulated within forensic and medical communities in China, yet never officially acknowledged. The hospital's basement level houses the morgue, consisting of 14 cold storage rooms numbered 01 to 14. Among them, Room 12 stood out, fully soundproofed, equipped with deep freezing at -22 degrees Celsius, and containing 8 sealed metal drawers designed for long-term corpse preservation. From 1984 to 1999, Room 12 functioned normally. It was typically used to store unidentified bodies, unclaimed remains, or long-term forensic cases. In early May 1999, anomalies began to emerge. Temperature sensors malfunctioned, Hallway cameras flickered, and motion detectors registered unexplained movements, always centered around room 12. The first person to notice a disturbing pattern was Night Security Officer Zhu Guoxing, who monitored the hospital's surveillance system that he recalled. Every night at exactly 3:33 a.m., the monitor for the hallway near room 12 would distort badly, black out for about 15 seconds, then return, but the footage always shook slightly, as if someone had just walked past the lens. No faults were found in the camera. The footage remained intact, but only room 12's feed glitched. All others were normal. Engineers replaced the camera, yet for the next 4 nights, the distortion continued at the same exact time. On the morning of May 14th, forensic technician Lu Jiang entered room 12 and found a female corpse lying in the center of the room. She had died of a stroke and was stored 3 days earlier in drawer number 5, securely locked. Yet now, her body lay, face up on the floor, eyes partially open, 2 meters from the drawer. Lu swore no one had permission to enter during the night shift. The door lock was untouched, but drawer 5 was empty. Another coroner looked for drag marks, but the stainless steel floor was spotless. It was as if the body had moved on its own. Retired mortuary nurse Zhao Fong, aged 61, was one of the last staff members to work alone in room 12, as she shared in an unofficial interview. Around 3 a.m., I heard a faint, steady scratching. I assumed it was a rat, but as I approached drawer 4, I realized the sound came from inside. She did not open it. She stood frozen. The sound continued for nearly a minute. I walked out. I requested a reassignment the next day. She never entered that basement again. The hospital board launched a confidential internal investigation. All systems were reviewed: locks, power grids, cooling pressure, and surveillance. Leaked documents revealed freezer pressure fluctuated from 3:30 to 3:35 a.m. Nightly condensation appeared outside sealed drawers. Despite freezing temps, one drawer was found slightly ajar, though its lock was still engaged, technicians wrote in the report. We cannot explain this through normal mechanical failure. The head engineer scribbled a personal note. We even cut off main power. Yet room 12's air pressure still changed. I believe something is moving inside, unseen. 3:33. On May 18th, guard Wang Xiaodao abruptly resigned after a solo night shift. No explanation was given. Colleagues said he startled easily and avoided the morgue halls even during daylight. That on May 22nd, forensic technician Lu Jiang requested a transfer today. Senior staff member disclosed. An internal recording has him whispering, I saw someone standing in the corner of room 12 at 3:30 a.m. But when he turned on the lights, nothing. That audio was never released. Three weeks later, the hospital made a final decision. Room 12 would never be used again. The steel door was welded shut, sealed in 3 layers, and security cameras were redirected. No one was allowed near after 10 p.m. Records and corpse management were moved to room 13. Staff avoided the topic entirely. Yet in 2006, a new night guard reported, I heard a faint voice behind the door of room 12. Not male or female, like something trapped. I turned on a radio. The sound persisted. Like breathing, like pleading. A final entry in the 1999 internal log read, "Will not reopen. Not for science. Not for spirits." Is death truly the end? Or is there a thin line between ceasing to live and ceasing to be? If deep within frozen steel and silence, something still breathes, still scratches, and waits for a crack to return? Would you dare to walk across a bridge that swallows people whole? Only on Friday the 13th? No blood, no bodies, just silence, then nothing. 13 people entered. None came back. And if you hear your name whispered halfway across, don't look back. The bridge no one crosses, Georgia, USA. Based on real reports and legends surrounding the Screaming Bridge in Oconee County, Georgia. Since 1978, over a dozen missing person reports have been filed in relation to the old wooden bridge near the Oconee River in Georgia, commonly referred to by locals as the Screaming Bridge. Though no formal record confirms the name, locals insist the name came from the chilling screams that echo late at night from the surrounding woods. The most disturbing pattern: 13 people vanished while crossing the bridge, all on a Friday the 13th. The bridge itself is short, barely 40 feet, with no lighting and minimal structural reinforcement. Yet, it has gained a reputation so fearsome that many refuse to even drive over IN 2013. Traffic surveillance captured a pedestrian entering the bridge at 2:17 a.m. The camera at the other end never recorded them leaving. No trace was ever found. The bridge sits in a wooded, semi-rural area off a quiet road with no shoulder. Built in the 1920s, it has survived floods, a fire in 1952, and multiple reinforcement projects. Despite this, the bridge appears rickety, almost out of place in the modern age. Locals claim it talks at night, creaking and groaning as if under invisible footsteps. Teenagers dare each other to cross it after midnight. Most return, but many report hearing whispers, feeling cold hands brush their arms, or seeing movement in the trees. The first disappearance attributed to the Screaming Bridge occurred on Friday, January 13, 1978. College student Daniel Price, 19, told friends he was going to record the bridge ghost using a reel-to-reel tape recorder. His car was found parked nearby. The recorder was recovered on the bridge, tape still running. The last few seconds recorded a sound that technicians described as a distant female scream and footsteps that suddenly stopped. Daniel was never seen again. Over the next 35 years, 12 more disappearances occurred. All happened on Friday the 13th, often between 1 and 3 a.m. Victims include a retired firefighter, a pair of teenage sisters, an amateur ghost hunter live streaming, a man walking his dog. The dog returned alone, terrified. The bridge was inspected, dredged, and even briefly closed. But no remains or evidence were found. Locals began leaving offerings, salt lines, jars of river water, and notes reading, "Let me pass." In 2013, new traffic cameras were installed at both ends of the bridge for construction monitoring. On Friday, September 13th, at 2:17 a.m., a figure was seen walking onto the bridge from the south side. The person wore a hoodie and walked slowly. They never appeared on the north side camera. The timestamp shows they should have crossed in under 10 seconds. The video was reviewed frame by frame. No pause, no retreat. The figure simply vanishes midway. In 2018, paranormal investigators placed sound traps and infrared motion detectors on the bridge. No motion was detected, but the recorders picked up faint whispers, then a scream that seemed to come from above and below at once. Acoustics experts could not replicate the sound. One microphone shorted out entirely. Another captured what some claimed was a voice saying, "Go back." Only one person has ever gone missing on the bridge and returned: Thomas Lantry, who disappeared in 1999 for 3 days. He was found wandering a highway 12 miles away, barefoot, incoherent. He was dehydrated, shaking, and had scratches on his arms, as if from brambles. When questioned, he said, "I walked across, but the other side wasn't here. It was all wrong. The air tasted like metal, and they watched me." He refused to elaborate. The Screaming Bridge is still open to pedestrians, but almost no one uses it. Authorities installed warning signs and many navigation apps route around it entirely. On recent Friday the 13th, THS police patrol the area. But the legend only grows. One knows what happens on that bridge, but 13 people walked on and never walked off. And if you hear someone whisper your name when you're halfway across, don't look back. Why only on Friday the 13th? Why are there never remains, screams, or signs of struggle? Could the bridge be a doorway to somewhere else? And if so, what waits on the other side? A newborn baby vanishes just hours after birth. Security cameras show a nurse carrying him away at 3:12 a.m. But that nurse? She resigned 3 months ago. There's no footage of her entering the building and none of her leaving. No fingerprints, no exit logs. Only one camera caught her image, while the others show nothing at all. Is this a case of human error or a visitation from something that still walks hospital halls unseen? The baby who vanished from the hospital, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Based on a true investigation in 2016 at São Vicente Hospital, Brazil. On March 14, 2016, at a major hospital in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, a newborn baby went missing from the neonatal care unit just hours after birth. A security camera captured footage of a nurse carrying the infant out of the room at 3:12 a.m. But when hospital administrators checked employee records, they discovered the woman had resigned 3 months earlier, and there was no footage of her ever leaving the hospital grounds. Police, media, and the public were stunned. An 8-month investigation turned up no trace of the child. And in a disturbing twist, the ghost nurse only appeared on one security camera. All other cameras failed to capture her presence. On Saturday night, March 13, 2016, the overnight shift at São Vicente Hospital was uneventful. Nurse Julia, responsible for monitoring the neonatal ward, confirmed there were 5 newborns under observation, including the son of Mariana Costa, born earlier that evening. Julia closed her eyes for a brief rest around 2 a.m., as all vital signs were stable. But when she checked at 3:30 a.m., she found one crib empty. Alarms were triggered immediately. Security reviewed footage from the 3rd-floor hallway. At 3:12 a.m., a figure in a white nurse's uniform and surgical mask was seen carrying a baby wrapped in a blanket. She didn't use the elevator or main exit. She headed for the emergency stairwell, which lacked camera coverage. Police cross-referenced staff records and found a match: Daniela Luz, a nurse who had resigned in December 2015 due to mental health issues. The baby's family, distraught and confused, noticed something chilling. When shown the footage, Mariana's mother whispered, I've seen her before. That's the nurse who took care of my grandson while I was unconscious. But no one named Daniela was on duty that night. Even more disturbing, only one camera captured the nurse's image. Footage from all other cameras, stairwells, exits, hallways, showed nothing unusual. No one carrying a baby appeared anywhere else. Other nurses began reporting strange occurrences. One claimed she'd heard lullabies playing in empty rooms. Another swore she saw a woman pass by a glass door, only to find the hallway empty moments later. Back in 2007, 2 nurses had died on the 3rd floor, one from a fall down the stairs, another by suicide in the break room. Daniela Luz had worked on this very floor for 8 years before resigning. Forensics analyzed the footage. The video was not tampered with, but the metadata was corrupted. There was no audio, and curiously, no reflection of the nurse appeared in nearby hallway glass that a detective walked the same path at the same time of night to test the route. He later reported the unshakable feeling of being followed, despite walking alone. His phone recorded the experience, but the final 37 seconds were completely blacked out and distorted. Three weeks after the disappearance, the family received a strange phone call. The audio was warped, but a woman's voice could be heard singing a lullaby and calling the baby's name. The number was traced to a landline in the 3rd floor nurses station, the very floor of the incident. But according to hospital records, that phone line had been disconnected 4 months prior, and no explanation was found. Since then, Mariana reported hearing a baby babbling softly in her ears every night, though doctors found no signs of delusion. The case was officially closed by the end of 2016, citing lack of evidence and witnesses. The baby was never found, And the woman in the footage, if truly Daniela, has never been located or contacted since her resignation. Most staff were gradually reassigned away from the third floor. A new nurse later confessed, "One night, I looked into the break room mirror and saw someone standing behind me, dressed in white, cradling a child. But I was alone." Could someone continue their duty even after death? And if a child is taken by someone who no longer exists, where should we even begin to search? Imagine being declared dead, sealed in a coffin, and buried beneath stone, while your heart still beats. In 1884 London, a young noblewoman was laid to rest. But days later, the gravekeeper heard knocking from inside her tomb. When they opened the coffin, what they found would haunt England for a century. This isn't a ghost story. This is a story about waking up when it's already too late. Knocking from the coffin, the girl buried alive in London, 1884. Based on real case files published in the London Evening News, May 1884. This incident was recorded in Victorian-era British newspapers, later classified by the British government for nearly a century. The victim was Lady Eleanor Margrave, 19 years old, daughter of the prestigious Margrave family in South London. Her funeral was quickly arranged, and she was buried in the family's marble crypt at West Norwood Cemetery. But what followed was horrifying. On April 14, 1884, Eleanor Margrave, the youngest daughter of Sir Charles Margrave, suddenly collapsed in the dining room. The family physician, Dr. Edmund Faulkner, diagnosed her with rheumatic fever complications and declared her dead at 5:32 p.m. No autopsy was performed. The family held a swift, private funeral. Eleanor was interred in the family's marble crypt beneath their chapel at West Norwood Cemetery, a burial site for London's nobility. Only close relatives and a priest attended. The coffin was nailed shut and sealed with a thin layer of cement. Everything seemed finished. For days after the burial, at midnight on April 18th, the cemetery caretaker, Jonathan Greeley, was making rounds when he heard faint knocking sounds coming from behind one of the stone walls. At first, he thought it might be rodents or fatigue-induced hallucination, but the knocking continued for about 2 minutes, rhythmic, one knock at a time, as if someone were begging for help. Greeley reported it to the chapel's priest, but no one believed him. "It's just wind echo or your imagination," they said. The next night, Greeley returned. The knocking was still there, and this time, he was certain it came from Lady Eleanor's tomb. On April 21st, after much insistence from Greeley, Sir Charles Margrave agreed to open the crypt, partly to silence rumors, partly out of unease. What they found left everyone frozen in place. The coffin lid had been pushed up from the inside, the cement seal broken into chunks, The interior of the lid was scratched with bloody claw marks. Fingernails shattered. Eleanor's body was twisted around, face down. Her hands were clenched upward as if trying to push the lid. Her face frozen in a grimace of pure terror, eyes wide open. A forensic examiner later concluded she didn't die from heart failure, but from suffocation, panic, and lack of oxygen. Dr. Faulkner, the one who signed the death certificate, was summoned. During questioning, he insisted Eleanor had no pulse when he checked, but a review of her medical history revealed she once suffered from catalepsy, a rare neurological disorder that can cause patients to enter a death-like state. No movement, nearly imperceptible heartbeat, pale skin. In that era of rudimentary medicine, it was a deadly trap. Faulkner had no heart monitor or EKG. He may have buried Eleanor alive without knowing. As word spread, crowds gathered nightly near West Norwood Cemetery to hear the knocking. Though Eleanor was reburied, other caretakers, not just Greeley, reported hearing knocking sounds from the stone tomb for 3 more nights. Then, silence. Some journalists speculated that Eleanor might have briefly returned, only to die again. Others believed her soul was trapped between 2 realms, and the knocking was her final plea from the border of life and death. The Margrave family was later ordered by authorities to remain silent. Press access to the cemetery was restricted. The case was classified under medical confidentiality. It wasn't until 1974 that a journalist from the Observer discovered the handwritten records in the National Archives. Some believe this case led to stricter protocols and death verification laws in the UK, including the mandatory 48-hour waiting period before burial in cases of sudden death. The story of Eleanor Margrave became a whispered legend in Victorian graveyards. For decades, grave diggers claimed to hear final knocks or find old coffins with claw marks inside. Today, the Archive Office of West Norwood still holds a blurry black and white photo showing a coffin lid lined with scratches, its authenticity unknown. But no one denies this. Once, a living person was buried as though dead, and she awoke, in the cold, in the dark, alone, pounding on the final door between 2 worlds. Did Eleanor truly awaken after death, or was she never dead to begin with? If the doctor was wrong, it was a medical disaster. But if he wasn't, what force brought her back? And how many others have awakened in their coffins, only to find no one hears their knocks? They thought it was just a dare, a midnight thrill in an abandoned power station deep in the Canadian woods. But what they found inside was not a ghost, not a person, not anything they could explain. It smiled without blinking. It whispered from the fog, and it wore the face of a child. 3 went in. 1 vanished forever. 1 died days later. The last one survived, but never spoke clearly again. This is the chilling, true story of what really lives in the dark. The children at the power station. A terrifying encounter with eyeless smiles in the dark. Alberta, Canada, 1997. In 1997, in a forested outskirt of Alberta, Canada, 3 teenage boys, aged 16 to 17, ventured into an abandoned power substation that had been shut down decades earlier due to an unresolved technical failure. It was meant to be a test of courage, a spooky night challenge. But what they found changed everything to be why the end of the night. One vanished without a trace. One died suddenly in his sleep. The last was found babbling, broken, repeating, "They don't have eyelids. They just keep laughing." The incident was briefly reported in a local news outlet, only to be pulled after 3 days. The victims' families refused media contact. But over 20 years later, the sole survivor, now institutionalized in a psychiatric facility, left behind a written record revealing what he claims happened that night and what lived in the dark. On the fringes of a sleepy Alberta town, Power Station Number 17 stood hidden in a grove of trees. It was decommissioned in 1976 after a supposed electrical leak, one that was never explained in public reports. Locals called it the lightning box and warned kids never to go near. Some said they had seen flickering blue lights inside the building during foggy nights. Others swore they'd heard children laughing. Even though the station hadn't been powered in over 2 decades, Tyler, 17, Marcus, 16, and James, 17, were 3 teens eager to prove there was nothing in there but dust and rats. They brought a camcorder, flashlights, and a creepy deck of tarot cards to pass the time. The night was November 23rd, 1997. The temperature had dropped to -9 degrees Celsius. No moon, heavy fog rolling in by 9 p.m. The trio reached the station at 10:12 p.m., according to the camcorder timestamp. The path in was overgrown but accessible. The gate hung on one hinge. The building creaked like something waiting to breathe. Inside, the air smelled of ozone and burned metal. Most of the old control panels were rusted, some with warning signs in faded French. None of the boys could read them. Marcus turned on the camera. Tyler set a timer on his phone. James wandered alone, fascinated by scratch marks along the walls. About 20 minutes in, a low, creeping fog began to pour into the hall, even though there was no rainfall. The flashlight beams grew dim, like shining through flour dust, and then the laughter began. It started faint, children giggling, but it was jagged, unnatural, like laughter run through a broken speaker. It echoed from behind a rusted breaker panel. Marcus joked, "Someone's messing with us." But James screamed, "I saw feet. Someone's under the floor." When they aimed their lights, they saw a small, pale gray foot, bare and waxy, slip quickly into a crack in the concrete. They bolted. The corridor behind them had vanished into fog. Then came the whispers, soft but sharp, as if spoken directly into their skulls. "Don't run. We're watching." The camcorder began to shake violently, emitting static screeches. Its final image, recorded at 10:46 p.m., showed a white, eyeless face grinning, right behind Marcus. There was no fight, no blood, only screams, followed by a chorus of distorted giggles, then silence. Police later found James unconscious in a corner. Marcus was gone. No footprints, no clothes, no sign of struggle. Tyler was found 300 meters away, barefoot in the snow, muttering, "They don't blink. They don't blink." The footage was partially recovered. Investigators initially suspected psychological distress or a hoax, but what was captured on camera was not human. Tyler suffered a complete psychotic break 3 days later. He was admitted to Fort Hope Psychiatric Facility. Less than a month later, during an afternoon nap, he died of an apparent heart attack. Despite being in perfect health, James moved away, trying to forget the incident. But years later, during a return visit, he began having recurring dreams, visions of blue light, children laughing backwards, and a voice that laughed from inside his own body. An independent investigator visited the site in 2004. His electromagnetic instruments malfunctioned near the building. GPS failed. Readings went wild. He described it as a magnetic anomaly zone. Broken windows still bore child-sized handprints, clawed across the inside glass. Too small to be adult, too high to belong to animals. When he met James, the survivor confessed, "They're not children. They just wear that shape because they know we won't fight back." The incident was officially recorded as a missing persons case and accidental psychological trauma. The station was sealed with steel in 2002. This day, locals still claim to hear laughter in the trees. Some say on especially foggy nights, they see blue flashes, as if the power station comes alive again, and in the silence afterward, a voice whispering, "We're still watching." So if you ever see flickering light from an old, sealed-off building, would you step in? Would you dare look into the dark and see who's laughing? The story ends here, but the mysteries still linger somewhere out there, hiding in the dark. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. If you felt a chill down your spine, don't forget to subscribe, turn on the bell, and share this story. We'll meet again in the next night with another mystery. Good night.